everybody, welcome back to another video. Slightly different one today. I am on the beach obviously, and it's getting pretty stormy, so I'm going to try and do this quickly. I'm using the mic as well, so I don't know how the sound's going to be, but it's so windy as I said, so hopefully it's not picking too much up of that. So it is October, it's Halloween month, and I absolutely love Halloween. It's always been one of my favourite times of year. So I wanted to do a little video around that. Now, when I was little, like I said, it was one of my favourite times of year. So I used to literally always beg my mum to get out all the Halloween decorations from the loft. I loved writing as well, so I used to have this little notebook that I'd write Halloween poems in and all of that kind of stuff. And as I've got older, I don't really do anything for it anymore. So this year I'm going to make sure I have a night where I'm just watching horror films and snacks and all of that kind of stuff. But it got me thinking about the house that I grew up in, and I'm almost convinced it was haunted. And my whole family will tell you the same thing, so I'm going to tell you some stories about it. So when my family see the title of this, they're probably going to be like, what the hell is she posting about now? Because I think I'm going to call it Growing Up in a Haunted House. But honestly, when I tell you that house was haunted, we all think it was. We all have stories about it, and we talk about it to this day. I'm going to start by starting from the beginning. So, starting from the beginning, this house that we moved into, we all moved it, we lived there for years and years. So when I moved in there, I think I was probably I don't know, I want to say 5 or something. And basically, so it's my mum, my dad, my brother and my sister and me, so the 5 of us. And we lived at the end of this road at this time when we were all younger. And then my great nanny, so my mum's nanny, lived up this road as well, but kind of in the middle, and then we were living at the end. Also guys, sorry, I'm really sniffly because I'm getting ill, if you can hear that in my voice. Basically, my great nanny and great grandpa lived in this house. My great grandpa died, and I never really knew him, but I vaguely remember my great nanny. We used to go up there, and I was really little. She'd always treat us. She'd have this box of after eights in her lounge, and we were always able to have one as a little treat. Do you know, little memories that you remember when you're little? And yeah, it always felt good being there. I loved it. It was a very comforting place. Anyway, I remember being in the old house and sat eating dinner, and my mum got a phone call. And I just remember I knew something was up. I was very little, but I just knew something was up, the way she grabbed my dad to talk to him, and she looked shocked. Basically, on the end of the line was my nanny telling her that great nanny had died, passed away, so she'd died in her sleep. So obviously in this house up the road from us. Now, don't know the ins and outs, but for whatever reason, it was such a beautiful house that my mum and dad decided to buy it. So although my great nanny had died in the house, my mum and dad decided to buy the house and was like, we can do this up and make it such a nice family home. And that is what they did. And I have memories of when I was little, walking up and down the road, bringing stuff up to the house, whilst we were moving in. And I have memories of knocking down walls in the house, taking out floorboards. And there was all this really old stuff, old tins, old matchsticks, just old everything. Because obviously my great nanny and grandpa had this house for a very long time, and they were very old when they passed away, so it was really cool. So anyway, I was really little. I used to love going up there whilst they were doing up the house. It'd be really fun. Me and my sister would play in the garden and stuff. Eventually we all moved in, and like I said, my mum and dad decided to do up the whole house. It was very different to how it was when my great nanny was living there. And it was such a beautiful house. And at the time, my mum loved the old Victorian style of house. So we did it up very much like that. It was very old fashioned. But that's kind of where the freaky stuff starts. Because of the way it was designed, and it was a big house, and it was very spacious and airy, and just big rooms. empty rooms with like high ceilings, because like I said, the way it was designed, my mum wanted like minimal things in a way. So you'd walk into the lounge and it'd just be like really fancy sofas, and everything was like, it was like a magazine house. What do you call it? Like a show home. We weren't really allowed to keep much stuff around the house. It was kept very showy. It was a beautiful house, don't get me wrong, but I think straight away that's where it kind of feels a bit freaky anyway, because that's the kind of house you associate in horror movies. So my friends actually didn't like coming over for sleepovers because they actually thought it was haunted as well. Like, they just found the house quite freaky. And numerous things happened where we are just all convinced that whether it was my great nanny or whoever it was, like, we feel like there was definitely some sort of spirit in that house, because unexplainable weird things began to happen. Also, guys, I'm really sorry I keep like brushing my mouth and everything. You know when you're ill? I think I've got COVID, honestly. Everything feels really bunged up. But anyway, let me start by telling you some stories. So, where do I even begin? Because there's so many weird things that happened. First of all, just in general, being in the house, I just felt on edge, really. Now, this is a weird feeling to explain, because the house was freaky, okay? Weird things happened, yet I felt weirdly attached to that house, to the point that when we had to move out, I think a lot because of the circumstances in which we had to sell and just get up and leave, I was devastated. We were all devastated. Like, I found that really, really hard, and I wouldn't even go past the house for a long time after it was no longer ours, because I would just cry, because I was just gutted that we had to get rid of the house. I truly thought that that house would run down in our family. Like, I wanted to live there when I was older. Like, it was a weird feeling with the house, because I don't really want to speak on behalf of everyone else, but I have spoke to my sister about it. Like, I felt strongly attached to that house, and I was so gutted, and I wanted it to be passed down through the family. But at the same time, when I think about the house, I get like a weird feeling, like I get chills. Like, when I actually picture myself back in that house, I feel really strange. It's a really weird mix of emotions that I get. So leading on from that, I guess what I mean is, when we were living in that house, just the whole presence felt strange. It constantly felt like something, I guess, was like watching. I know that sounds really silly, but it truly felt like that. Like, I remembered in our back room, we made it into a gym. We were all a very active family, and we had a treadmill in there. And the treadmill was facing this way, and the door into the room was here behind the treadmill. So when you were running on the treadmill here, you'd be facing into the room, and the door to get into this room was directly behind. And the whole time I would be running on that treadmill, it would just feel like there was someone standing in the doorway watching me, to the point where I would remember I'd be running and I'd be like looking behind like this and like tripping over myself, especially when I did it at night time. And all the windows around the room, none of them had like blinds, so it would just be dark. And I'd be like looking forward outside these dark windows. It just constantly felt like there was something behind me. Like, I could almost feel like I could sense it or like see it from the corner of my eye, and it would just be a really strange feeling. And to get to this room where the gym was, it was down the corridor in the house. So the kitchen was kind of like here, then the corridor a long corridor went down like this, then the gym was there at this end of the corridor. So kitchen this side of the corridor, gym this side of the corridor. And to get down to that corridor, to get to the gym space, my mum had bloody gone and put like one of those Victorian statue head things at the end of this corridor on top of the like dresser. And that would freak us out. The amount of times we'd look down that corridor when it was dark, because that's another thing, right? That light always broke. The light that would lit up this side of the corridor always would break for no reason, and the switch would always have like a crack in it, and everyone would be like, I didn't do it. Now, I spoke to my sister about this. To this day, I said, was it you, Ellie? You can tell me now, we're older now. No, you're not going to get told off. Everyone denies it. They would just randomly break. So the house just felt dark all the time, because the switches would just break randomly. and everyone would say it wasn't them. So yeah, it would be dark. It just felt dark all the time, and it just felt like there was always something standing there. It would be so freaky to get to that side of the corridor. Not all the time. Like I said, I adored this house, but when it got to especially nighttime, or if you were home alone throughout the day and it was like a real quiet kind of day, it would just feel freaky, and just something would feel off. And I remember if I was downstairs and all the lights were off and I was home alone, because my bedroom was upstairs, I would sprint up the stairs, and as soon as I got into my bedroom, I would slam the door shut, because I just felt on edge all the time, especially when I was home alone. So that leads me on to saying, mine and my sister's bedrooms were upstairs. My brothers and my mum's and my dad's were downstairs. Now, the upstairs area was never an upstairs when my great nanny lived there. It was a massive loft area, so it was a bungalow. When we moved into the house, we did up the whole house. So we made the upstairs area. So now think about that. The upstairs area, when me and my sister are sleeping and playing all the time, used to be an empty loft space, just a big empty loft space. So again, in particular, the scary parts of the house at times felt like where me and my sister were sleeping, because we actually still had 2 loft spaces up there. The way we designed it was there was a loft in between mine and my sister's room where we kept all of our toys, and then I had a loft space in my room where we kept all like Christmas decorations and just things we didn't use. So a story to do with the loft space is the loft that was in my room. Again, I'm sorry I had to stop it. My nose is just running here and it's starting to rain. But the loft space in my room, I had like these little white doors that opened up onto big loft space where all the decorations were, and you could kind of like crawl through, and you'd look one way. It was just like this dark, it looked like it was never ending, just like this dark space with all the decorations. You look to the other side, same thing. You look down, looks like it never ends, just this dark, creepy space. Now, these loft doors in my room would always just open. No matter how many times I closed them, I would come back in, not lying, they would be slightly ajar, slightly open, but the way you push them shut, that it just doesn't seem possible, although it must be possible, because do I believe there was really a ghost? I don't know. You guys can discuss that in the comments, but it didn't feel possible, but somehow they would be slightly ajar, like open, as if something was, opening them from time to time. It was just really strange. And I would hear the kind of like creak constantly, especially on a windy night. So I guess, okay, it could be the wind opening them, I don't know, but you would just hear like the creaking of them opening, and like the amount of times I'd have to go up to them and close them, and it used to freak me out to the point that we put like my blanket box kind of like in front of it to, I don't know, it would just freak me out. Okay, so the other thing that would happen was, well, not that would happen, did happen, is between mine and my sister's room. Okay, so as I said, there was a loft in the middle of mine and my sister's room, and above the loft doors, there was a window on the roof, and it was kind of on a slant. I don't remember what that's called. Obviously, because it was like the loft space, the ceilings were like that. So that's another element as to why it felt a bit freaky, because it had like we had like the wooden bar things across the ceiling. Do you know what I mean? I don't remember what they're called now, but kind of like, do you know what you have in like a barn or something? So anyway, this window was like this across the ceiling above the loft between mine and my sister's room. Now, one day I walked up the stairs and looked up at this window, and there was a big crack in it. Now, this window was a double glazed window, so there is just no way it could have happened. It wasn't as if something landed on it from the outside, because it was double glazed. Like, the outside was fine. It was the inside that was cracked, and no one had been upstairs. Like, when we had left the upstairs, it was fine, and then when we came back up, it was just smashed. And again, I asked my sister to this day, was it you? Because she had a bit of a habit of doing stuff like that, and then she was a bit clumsy, and she knew Mum would go mad, so she would never admit to things. But I asked her to this day, like, was it you? And she's like, Georgia, I swear, like, it wasn't me. So it just randomly smashed. And we still don't know how that happened, but there's not really any way it could have or should have happened. So that was really bizarre. And like I said, I was talking to my sister about this, and she was like, no, like when I think back to that house, I feel freaked out as well. Another thing that happened, and this was one of my scariest things that happened in the house, okay? Also, sorry if I'm speaking a bit fast and all over the place. I'm trying to get this done as quick as I can because, like I said, it feels like there is about to be a storm. But the thing that freaked me out one of the most was my TV used to just turn on in the middle of the night. And it started happening randomly one day, and then it continued to happen for a long time. And I remember thinking there has to be an explanation to this, like I've put a timer on by accident, because you know, like a lot of people would do that, so the TV would wake them up. And I double checked, and I'd never put a timer on, and I'd not done it by mistake. So my TV would just randomly turn on in the night, and it would always be a freaky channel of just like talking. I would just wake up to talking in my room, and it was one of those obviously old school TVs that were like the big one with the big back and like the aerial and everything, that makes it even more freaky. And it would just turn on. There would be no explanation for it, and that used to freak me out the most, to the point where I literally I had like this single bed in the middle of the room, and I would get all of my cuddlies. I had like massive bear cuddly toys. I had like a lot of cuddly toys when I was little, and I would put them all in the bed with me, all around me, get as many blankets as I could, just so I didn't feel so alone, and that there was things all around me that could like protect me. Obviously it wasn't going to protect me, and I would just put the covers over my head. I literally would. I would be terrified, to the point where, ask my sister, I would get up and I would go into her room in the night and get into bed with her because I just couldn't sleep. I just felt terrified all the time. I've always been scared of the dark, so that could be a bit of it. But there was more. It just felt like there was something in my room with me all the time, or just something in the house, to the point that my bedroom door had a lock on it, but my mum didn't let me keep the key. So like I couldn't, by accident, I locked myself in when I was little. And I like begged her for that key so that I could just go in my room at night and lock the door, because it just felt like there was something in that house, and it just terrified me. Another thing is, which leads on from the nighttime stuff, is I used to sleepwalk all the time. My dad would always stay up later than everyone else in the lounge watching something, and he'd tend to like fall asleep in there. And he would just wake up to me standing there, and I used to freak him out. He'd wake up from his like nap on the sofa, and I'd just be standing there asking for a glass of water, but I would never remember doing it. I sleepwalked so much in that house. I remember when I was really little, and me and my sister had been playing up in her room, and we'd got our toys out everywhere. And I remember I was downstairs, and my mum said, Georgia, go upstairs and tidy the room. No one else was up there. She wanted me to go up and tidy it. I said, Mum, please don't make me go up there on my own. I really don't want to, but she made me. And you know what it's like when you're little, you have to do it. I went up there. I did not tidy a single thing. I sat in the corner of that room crying my eyes out because I was just terrified, until my mum came up and let me come back down. I don't know what it was, but I felt frightened all the time. And I wasn't really that type of I don't know, I was a bit shy at times, but I wasn't like a scared child. I was always up for adventure and trying new things. And as I said, I loved Halloween. I loved scary things, but there was something about that house that just made me feel terrified a lot of the time. And back to my friends feeling scared in there as well. I remember I'd have them over for sleepovers, and to the point where they said they're not coming over anymore. They felt way too scared. And I remember I had like this fairy tale castle in my room, and it had like this witch that would sit on the top of the castle on like a broomstick, and it would just fall off all the time. No explanation again. There would be no wind or anything like that, but it would just fall off the castle and make like a massive bang. And it happened numerous times when me and my friends would all be in my room just playing and sat there like quietly chatting and stuff, like reading books, whatever it was, and it would just fall off all the time. They remember this, to the point where they stopped coming over. They would talk amongst themselves and say my house was too scary. Anyway, guys, it is starting to tip it down. So I'm going to leave this one here. I'm sure there's many other stories I could tell you, but I hope you've enjoyed this Halloween kind of video. I was going to do this with like pumpkins in the background and stuff at the house, but I thought this setup was cooler. But I'm gonna love you guys and leave you. Sorry I kind of rushed it, but as I said, I'm in a public space and it's now about to tip it down. And if you enjoyed this one, tell me, and I will do another one with more stories, because there are way more stories I can tell you about that house. Anyway, love you all lots, and I'll see you in the next one.